On October 18, 2023, at approximately 4:15 in the afternoon, a group of 11th grade students from Green Hill High School was conducting a field survey in the Pine Bridge Forest in the northwestern region of North Carolina. They had been assigned to collect plant samples from the third forest stratum, a zone rarely accessed due to its steep inclines and dense undergrowth. While crossing an old path nearly swallowed by lichen and tree roots, the two students at the front encountered an unusual triangular object protruding from the leaf-covered ground. At first glance, it seemed nothing more than a tattered tarp caught on several broken wooden poles. But as the group moved closer, they realized it was the remnants of a camping tent, the double-layered kind with waterproof fabric now decayed and an aluminum frame collapsed. The iron tent pegs had rusted, nearly blending into the earth. Inside, beneath a thick layer of green moss, they discovered an old backpack and a thick notebook with an imitation leather cover swollen from moisture, its metal clasp broken and sprung open. The faded words on the first page prompted the adults in the group to immediately contact the authorities. Day 3. Marquez hasn't returned. We started hearing the voices at midnight. Forest rangers and local police were dispatched that very night. They cordoned off the area, bringing the notebook and related evidence back for analysis. Initially, based on several lines written in the notebook and a few personal items, the investigative team suspected this might have been the final shelter of the camping group that went missing in 2006, a case that had shaken the state of North Carolina for months before abruptly going cold. Preliminary data extracted from the notebook led investigators to reopen the old case files. The notebook listed 5 full names: Marquez Eden, Talia Rowan, Bryce Ketter, Alina Voss, and Devin Trask, matching the group of college friends reported missing after a camping trip in July 2006. The final line in the notebook, scrawled hastily in pencil with a broken tip, shattered all prior theories. I am the last one left. But I am no longer sure I'm still myself. After 17 years, a disappearance seemingly buried beneath dense forest soil had unexpectedly surfaced through the damp pages of a journal. And this time, what they left behind might prove even harder to explain than their vanishing. Pine Bridge Forest, located about 40 miles west of the small town of Winslow, is one of the remaining patches of old-growth forest in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. In the summer of 2006, the area had not yet been designated as a conservation park like it is today. It was a vast expanse of over 60,000 acres of dense woodland, interspersed with limestone ravines, cold streams, and moss carpets thick as blankets covering the forest floor. The local population rarely ventured into Pine Bridge, not out of fear of anything mysterious, but simply because it held little appeal. No large lakes, no popular trails, just a region of interwoven ancient trees, uneven terrain, and nearly non-existent cell signal. For that very reason, it became an ideal destination for those seeking isolation, a place where one could disappear from the world for a few days. In 2006, the trend of off-the-grid camping was gaining popularity among college students. These were trips without phones, without Wi-Fi signals, relying only on paper maps, compasses, and basic survival skills. On student forums of that time, Pine Bridge was occasionally mentioned as a place where no one has camped more than 3 nights, an enticing challenge for those wanting to test their limits. The town of Winslow, then home to only about 2,000 residents, had no police station of its own and depended on neighboring Pender County for law enforcement. The roads leading into the forest were mostly red dirt paths, occasionally crossing short creeks via wooden bridges that often washed away after heavy rains. The summer of 2006 was particularly stormy. An unusually high number of small storms made outdated topographic maps unreliable and navigation through the forest more difficult than ever. At the time of the disappearance, Pine Bridge had never been the site of any major criminal case. There were no records of murder, abduction, or significant civil unrest within a 50-mile radius. This initially led authorities to favor theories of natural accidents, getting lost, falling, or animal attacks. However, certain peculiarities in the missing group's file, especially the timing of their last contact and the complete absence of any physical trace, soon pushed the case in a far more inexplicable direction. For many years afterward, Pine Bridge became a blank spot on the local tourism map, in part because of the whispered stories that began to circulate among the youth about a group of students who had chosen the wrong place to explore, but more so because of the haunting silence in the official investigation files. No final sound, no distress signal, no bodies. Only a patch of forest without answers, and 17 years of waiting until a decayed tent and a paper notebook spoke on behalf of what had once been buried. The group of 5 who went missing in Pine Bridge Forest in 2006 were not reckless or ill-prepared. They were seniors at Northridge University studying in different departments, but closely bonded through years of sharing dorm life and weekend trips. What made their names remembered for many years afterward was not only their mysterious disappearance, but also the distinct personalities of each individual, like strange puzzle pieces bound together by friendship. Marquez Eden, 23 years old, was the initiator of the trip. Born in El Paso, Texas, he had moved to North Carolina in his freshman year. A biracial man of Mexican and African descent, Marquez was described by friends as having a quiet charisma, a love for nature, and a passion for journaling. He majored in anthropology and often led his friends to little-known places to experience true silence. The notebook discovered 17 years later belonged to Marquez, the one he brought along on every journey. Talia Rowan, 22, was Marquez's best friend and the person closest to him within the group. A psychology major, Talia was known for her striking red hair and strong personality. She had interned at a rehab center, was highly sensitive to others' emotions, and often played the role of mediator whenever disagreements arose. In old photographs, Talia was always the one in the center, her arms around her friend's shoulders. Bryce Ketter, 24, was a senior majoring in environmental engineering. He was tall, quiet, and took charge of all technical aspects of the trip, setting up the tent, filtering water, and navigating with maps. Bryce and Alina had previously been in a romantic relationship, but were believed to have broken up not long before the trip. Some relatives noted that this was the first full reunion of the group since the couple's falling out. Alina Voss, 23, was of mixed German and Kenyan heritage. A visual arts student, Alina had bright eyes and an exceptional ability to sketch quickly. She often captured landscapes in drawings rather than photos. Among the personal items found back in 2006 at the parking area was Alina's sketchbook. Its first pages filled with detailed drawings of the Pine Bridge Forest, which were later used by police as reference in search mapping. Devin Trask, 22, was the youngest member of the group. A journalism student, he loved writing horror stories and often recorded video diaries during their trips. It was Devin who brought along a Panasonic handheld camera, a device never recovered after the disappearance. He was also the one who sent the final message from the group's phone 1 hour before all communication ceased. Everything just went silent. The whole forest stopped breathing. This group of friends had gone on over 10 camping trips together during their 3 years at university. They were not inexperienced. Before heading to Pine Bridge, they had purchased enough food for 4 days, brought printed topographic maps, compasses, and even a full medical kit. They had left a detailed plan with a classmate, the intended campsite location, the expected return time, and a phone passcode in case of emergency. And then they vanished. No one called home. No one returned to class after the break. There were no distress signals, no signs of movement. Only an expanse of forest and 5 lives swallowed whole in silence. On July 12, 2006, at around 8 o'clock in the morning, the group of 5 departed from their shared apartment in the northern district of Durham. They loaded their luggage, camping gear, dried food, and equipment into Bryce's old SUV, a silver 1992 Ford Bronco. During the drive, which lasted over 3 hours, they made one stop at a gas station on the outskirts of Asheboro, where a security camera captured the last known footage of all 5 smiling, holding coffee, and playfully arguing over a folded paper map. At approximately 12:40 in the afternoon, they arrived at the edge of Pine Bridge Forest, where a makeshift parking area had been cleared by local residents. From there, they continued on foot for 3 miles along an old trail called Crosswell Hollow, a little-used path leading deep into the forest's second stratum. According to a classmate with whom they had left their itinerary, the group planned to camp for 3 nights on a high clearing with dense canopy cover near a small, unofficially named Stream Creek 57. Along the way, they brought with them Devin's video camera, Marquez's notebook, Alina's sketchbook, and the small music player Talia often used. Bryce was in charge of navigation, relying on a topographic map annotated with personal notes gathered from online forums. At that time, the weather in Pine Bridge was favorable, an average temperature of 26 degrees Celsius with no sign of rain. By that evening, they were believed to have completed setting up camp at the intended location. A few locals living near the forest's edge recalled seeing a small light from a distance that night, possibly from the alcohol stove the group used. No one suspected anything unusual. In that region, campers often came and went without leaving a trace. The second day passed quietly with nothing reported. No strange noises, no shouting, no distress signals were heard. But according to the contents of the notebook discovered 17 years later, that night was when everything began to change. On a page without a specific date, there was a handwritten note from Marquez. Last night, Bryce woke up from a dream. Said he heard someone calling his name from behind the tent. We thought it was a prank, but then Devin heard it too. It sounded like a girl's voice, but it wasn't Talia. Then the flashlight started flickering, even though the battery was full. On the third day, the last message from Devin's phone was sent at 9:18 in the morning. Everything just went silent. The whole forest stopped breathing. After that, all communication ceased. What was strange was this: the GPS signal from the group's phone recorded the camp coordinates exactly as planned, then stopped, showing no further movement. But when rescue teams searched the location, they found no tent, no belongings, nothing. It was not until 17 years later that the actual location of the tent was discovered nearly 2.4 miles to the northwest, deeper farther, and within an area once marked as inaccessible due to sinkholes and landslides. The question remains, why did they leave the main campsite? And if anyone survived the third night, where did they go? July 14th, 2006 was the date the group had planned to leave Pine Bridge. According to their original itinerary, they were expected to return to the parking area before 5 in the afternoon and call their classmate Kellen to confirm they were safe. But from early that morning, all communication signals had been lost. No messages, no phone calls, no new GPS data. Devin's phone, the device with the group's best battery life, stopped transmitting its location after 9:18 in the morning. The previous day, the exact moment when that strange final message was sent, everything just went silent. The whole forest stopped breathing. After waiting several hours without hearing from them, Kellen began calling all 5 of their numbers. Every call rang, but no one picked up. By evening, the calls began going straight to voicemail. At first, Kellen assumed the group had lost signal or decided to extend their trip. But by the 15th, none of them had returned to the apartment. No one had called their families, and no one showed up for their scheduled part-time shifts. On July 16th, a missing persons report was filed with the Pender County Sheriff's Department. The search began early on the morning of the 17th, involving more than 40 rescue personnel, search dogs, and even thermal scanning helicopters. They followed the clues the group had left behind: maps, photos, sent to friends before the trip, the intended campsite coordinates. But at the spot marked on the map, there was no sign that anyone had ever pitched a tent there. No scraps of fabric, no footprints, no fire pit. The final traces, a faint line of hiking boot prints cut off abruptly in a patch of soft ground, as if the entire group had stopped and then disappeared. Authorities expanded the search radius to 10 miles but still found nothing. Over the next 3 weeks, only 3 items were recovered. A gray wool sock matching the type Bryce wore caught on a branch higher than a person's head. A half-eaten protein bar wrapper, the brand Talia often brought but with no remaining fingerprints. A crumpled map with a red X marked nearly 3 miles from the original campsite. No one knows who made the mark. No bodies, no signs of violence, no physical evidence indicating the group had exited the forest in any direction. Even Devin's video camera, a device he routinely used to document their journeys, vanished without a trace. The victims' families shared handwritten letters, photos, and final messages with the media as a way of holding on to their last images. Most notably, Alina's mother, Mrs. Nadine Voss, said in an interview she once told me, "You know, Mom, I like the forest more than the city. Out there, I feel like I truly exist." That sentence, when replayed on television in the fading days of the search, sounded like a sorrowful prophecy. Because from that day on, no one ever saw them again, no one ever heard them, no one ever uncovered a clear clue about what had happened after that silent morning in Pine Bridge Forest. Until 17 years later. From the very first week, the disappearance of the 5 college students in Pine Bridge Forest became a statewide media focal point. News broadcasts repeatedly aired their photos, old images taken in classrooms on weekend outings, and especially the security footage at the gas station where all 5 were smiling, laughing, seemingly without a care in the world. The search operation was quickly expanded. Local rescue teams coordinated with the Pender County Police, a federal rapid response unit, and even received support from the National Guard. Over 150 personnel were deployed in shifts over nearly 2 months. The suspect zones were divided into 3 sectors: the primary access zone where the group was believed to have originally set up camp, the low and inaccessible zone where isolated items such as the sock and the map were found, the extended zone based on the theory that the group may have tried to leave the forest but became disoriented. Despite the use of sniffer dogs, helicopters, and night vision thermal imaging, every effort led to nothing. Police even explored unlikely possibilities, an animal attack, poisoning from wild plants, or even mass disorientation and aimless wandering. One detail once thought to potentially change the course of the investigation but ultimately forgotten was a short video from a wildlife trap camera. This camera had been installed by a wildlife research organization at the edge of the forest's third stratum. The 19-second clip, captured at 3:21 in the morning on July 14th, showed a strange light streaking through the forest, not like a flashlight nor lightning. The footage showed the silhouettes of three people moving quickly across the frame, then stopping motionless for several seconds. One of them appeared to look up, then suddenly collapsed. The other two ran out of view, but the image was too blurry and indistinct to confirm identities or direction of movement. Unfortunately, at the time, the video was deemed to be of no investigative value and was simply archived in the research organization's secondary storage. It was not until the case was reopened in 2023 that the clip was examined carefully and found to coincide in time with the final message from Devon's phone. The internal investigation team was also divided. One faction believed there had been interpersonal conflict leading to separation or violence, especially after the discovery of the half-eaten protein bar and the unusually marked map. The other side supported the theory of a collective accident, such as being swept away by fast-moving water, but no physical evidence supported this hypothesis. The families of the victims responded in different ways. Talia's parents believed a sixth person had encountered the group in the forest. They asserted that their daughter was extremely cautious around strangers and would not have ventured deeper into the forest without a compelling reason. Meanwhile, Devon's mother raised questions about Bryce's prior behavior, who had shown signs of mild anxiety disorder, though never officially diagnosed. Police had interviewed over 70 individuals, including former classmates, gas station employees, and local hunters, but no one provided new information. No one had seen the group after the gas station footage. No device signals reactivated. There was no evidence of spending social media logins or movement through any checkpoints. Eventually, after 112 days of fruitless investigation, the case was classified as missing under unexplained circumstances, a level below a criminal case. The file was closed, the physical evidence archived, and the search efforts ceased. In the press, headlines shifted from shocking to routine: another disappearance and another forest without answers. The haunting did not come from the brutality of the scene, but from its absolute silence, a kind of disappearance that left behind no sound. Not until the year 2023, when the decaying leaves slowly receded from the floor of Pinebridge Forest and the rotting tent and weathered notebook were unexpectedly found, did the long-buried theories begin to rise once more. After the case was officially classified as not eligible for further investigation, at the end of 2006, public and media attention gradually faded. The disappearance that once dominated news coverage across North Carolina was soon replaced by new stories, politics, natural disasters, and criminal cases with clearer outcomes. The victims' families tried to maintain awareness through personal efforts, erecting missing persons signs at the edge of Pinebridge, launching websites to share images and related information, organizing prayer vigils and memorials on an annual basis. But with each passing year, attendance grew thinner. By the fifth year, some families had begun the process of applying for death certificates under the category of overdue disappearances. It was not a simple process because it meant accepting that their children were no longer alive. But the law could not indefinitely suspend a person's legal identity in silence. The first to be declared legally deceased was Alina Voss in 2013. The last was Marquez Eden in 2018. At Northridge University, where the five had once studied, the dormitory they lived in was removed from the housing list, not due to its grim history, but because new students no longer knew the story. Some former faculty still kept photos of them in their offices as a reminder of the inexplicable. But beyond that, everything sank like a stone to the bottom of a lake. Social media, once the hub of early theories, no longer mentioned them much after 2010. The silence wasn't due to complete forgetfulness, but because the case offered nothing new. No rumors, no new evidence, no one coming forward with more to say. Pinebridge also gradually changed. In 2014, the forest was designated as a regional ecological reserve with periodic biological survey routes. This development inadvertently led to the turning point of 2023, when students on a field study first ventured into the third forest stratum once marked as inaccessible. In an era of surveillance technology, digital data, and satellite maps, the fact that an entire group could vanish in a stretch of forest in the heart of the United States remains beyond reason. And that very fact is why the Pine Bridge case was never completely forgotten, but rather like a sealed box resting at the deepest layer of communal memory. A disappearance no one asked about anymore, but still somewhere someone was waiting for an explanation. On the afternoon of October 18, 2023, a group of students from Green Hill High School's extracurricular biology program conducted a routine field survey in Pine Bridge Forest. They followed a newly established ecological survey route opened in 2022, an area in the third forest stratum known for its steep, slippery terrain and sparse human activity. At approximately 4:15, the two leading students discovered an object concealed beneath moss and vines. After clearing the surface, they recognized it as the collapsed aluminum frame of a two-person tent, a classic model. Its waterproof fabric decayed, the zippers rusted, and the roof caved in from a broken central pole. Beside it lay a black leather backpack, badly misshapen and rotted, and a small, heavy rectangular item, a faux leather-bound notebook about 1.5 inches thick, its metal clasp torn open as if violently yanked. Upon opening the notebook, one of the early pages bore a faint but still legible handwritten line. Day 3. Marquez hasn't returned. We started hearing the voices at midnight. The survey team immediately contacted the supervising teacher, who then called the county sheriff's office. By 7 in the evening, the area was fully cordoned off, and the evidence was transferred to a temporary forensic facility in Winslow. The notebook contained over 60 pages, with approximately 40 pages legible after drying, infrared imaging, and digital processing. Most entries were written by a single individual, confirmed through handwriting analysis to match that of Marquez Eden, based on test papers and letters provided by his family. The discovery caused an immediate stir throughout the region. After 17 years without a single lead, the notebook became the first and only evidence that might recount the final hours of the Pine Bridge camping group. But the most pressing question was not about the notebook's contents, but rather its location. The tent's discovery site lay 2.4 miles northwest of the original campsite coordinates provided by the group. In 2006, that area had been labeled hazardous terrain due to post-storm landslides and was excluded from the initial search perimeter. As a result, previous rescue efforts had completely overlooked the site. The question arises, why did they leave the main campsite and venture deeper into uncharted forest? No one has a clear answer. However, a short line in a midsection of the notebook offers a clue. Bryce said he saw a light, a pale green one from the northwest. We debated checking it out since Devin hadn't come back since morning. No one was sure we should go, but it suddenly got cold and the fire wouldn't stay lit. This detail prompted investigators to reconsider. Earlier theories had the group split up with someone going missing first, and did the rest leave the original camp to search for them? Alongside the notebook, several other items were found near the tent. A flashlight with a cracked casing battery dead. A small tarp sheet covered in moss identified as waterproof ground lining. A packet of insect repellent with an expiration date of August 2006. A gray hoodie with a large tear at the shoulder, later confirmed to belong to Alina Voss. There were no human remains within a 200-meter radius of the tent. No blood, no bones, no intact personal belongings. Only the notebook and the stories beginning to surface from its decaying pages, enough to force open the door that had remained shut for 17 years. Once more. As the investigative team read through each intact page of the notebook, a fragmented but deeply unsettling picture gradually emerged. The slanted handwriting, at times hurried and trembling, recounted not only what had happened in Pine Bridge Forest, but also hinted at the gradual unraveling of the mental state of the once close group of friends. According to the documented timeline, the first day proceeded normally. They pitched their tent, built a fire, made coffee, played cards, and laughed together. But from the second night, something changed. Marquez wrote, "I woke up to footsteps right beside the tent wall. Not heavy, not hurried, just steady, as if someone were walking in circles. When I softly called Talia's name, the sound stopped, but then I'm certain I heard her voice calling mine. from outside. He confirmed that Talia was still asleep inside the tent. The next morning, Devin insisted he had seen a figure pass above the tree canopy to the west while he was fetching water at the stream. Bryce argued otherwise, saying it was just light filtering through the leaves, but the group began to grow uneasy. They decided to move the camp to another location northwest away from the stream to avoid whoever might be around. The next entry was written after they had relocated the campsite, the very location where the tent would be found in 2023. Here, Marquez's narrative began to fragment. He described the sense that time was no longer flowing evenly, the temperature shifted unpredictably, and his sleep was too deep yet without dreams. Then came a major rupture within the group. Talia and Bryce argued. She wanted to leave the forest first thing in the morning, but Bryce believed that if someone was nearby, it was safer to stay where we had visibility. Devin had been missing since the afternoon. Alina cried. I don't know what's really happening anymore. One especially disturbing entry came on the second to last page, written in jagged strokes with no date. I think I'm the last one still conscious, but I'm not sure anymore. Something is wrong. Inside my head, I hear them, even when they've left the tent. Maybe I'll go too. But before that, I'm leaving this so if someone finds it, they'll know we existed, even if just one last time. However, the most shocking twist came from the final page, torn, but the remaining piece was found beneath the damp soil a few meters from the tent. The scrap bore the pressure marks of pencil strokes written hastily, likely in darkness or panic. The content consisted of only one line: "I saw the lights, they weren't any of us." That sentence opened the door to a flood of theories. Had the group encountered strangers in the forest? Or did one of them begin acting so strangely that the others were frightened? DNA analysis on the notebook's inner cover confirmed fingerprints and skin cells belonging to Marquez, but also traces of dried blood. Lab results matched the genetic profile of Devin Trask. This indicated that Devin may have been with Marquez at the tent site at least until the near end. However, there was no evidence confirming a sixth person, no extra footprints, no clear signs of outside interference. Only the written words leaving behind an unshakable sense of unease. The notebook became the first and possibly only physical evidence showing that the group hadn't simply suffered an accident or lost their way. They had experienced something that made them leave their main camp. Something that caused one to disappear, another to write in solitude, and the other three never to be mentioned again after page 40. Something that still has no name. After most of the notebook had been decoded and the location of the dilapidated tent was fully excavated, the Special Investigation Team, reinstated by the Pender County Police Department in coordination with the State Bureau of Investigation, resumed operations. The goal was not only to clarify what had happened, but also to pursue a possibility, whether anyone had ever survived Pine Bridge. The only clue was the dried blood still left on one of the inner pages of the notebook. It not only matched the DNA of Devin Trask, but also showed signs of interrupted coagulation, meaning Devin might have been wounded but was still alive when the blood landed on the page. Given the climate conditions at the time, forensic experts confirmed this possibility was real. He might have survived for several more hours, possibly even days. This led to a significant hypothesis: Devin had not vanished with the initial group. He had left the camp or had been separated from the group and then returned. A new search was launched at the end of the year 2023. The northwestern region of the preserve, an area prone to landslides, was designated as a zone of suspicion. Drones, thermal cameras, and ground-penetrating radar were deployed. The result: no bodies were found, no bones, and no personal belongings that could confirm anyone had survived the area. But another discovery prevented the case from being closed. A strand of hair was found caught in a break along the trunk of a tree near the location of the tent, apparently torn off by a violent impact. The DNA from that hair did not match Marquez nor any of the four remaining individuals, but bore genetic characteristics closely related to a distant relative of Marquez. Thus, a startling possibility was raised. Marquez might still be alive or may have survived long enough to come into contact with or be encountered by someone outside the group. However, no traffic cameras, hospital records, or population databases over the past 17 years had registered any identity matching Marquez or anyone else from the group. At a final press conference in January 2024, the lead investigator stated, "We cannot conclude anything for certain, but based on the physical evidence, we cannot rule out the possibility that at least one member of the group survived for several days, perhaps even several weeks after the night of disappearance. The question is, where did they go?" The notebook is currently stored at the State Investigation Archives. A digital replica has been created, but the final pages with disjointed lines, erratic words, and panicked scribbles remain a major enigma. The story of 5 close friends who went camping in Pine Bridge, once thought to be buried beneath moss and decaying earth, has now become one of the most mysterious disappearance cases in the history of modern-day North Carolina. No bodies, no perpetrator, no definitive truth. Only a collapsed tent, an ink-blurred notebook, and an unanswered question. If one person survived, did they ever come back among us unnoticed?